meeting is being recorded.
Welcome to Critical Thinking. I'm your host, AT and Terrell, and I got a very special guest with me, the extraordinary producer, the different thinker, the critical thinker himself, my dog, Choo Choo. Tell him what's up, bro.
What's going on, man? Thanks for having me. Been a long time coming, that's for sure.
Definitely, I'm just happy to have you along, man.
Glad we
So
can make it happen.
let's get into it, man. What do you think about the conversation with chivalry and feminism? Like, do you think they correlate or are involved with another?
I think feminism, from the jump, was already like a bad idea. I know that they may have had their heart in the right place, or they may have thought their heart was in the right place. But I think that chivalry is just something that's innate. As a man, when you see a woman you like, you kind of inherently want to kind of just do well by her. You want to wine her down. You want to hold the door before. Like me personally, I like spending money on my girl, so that's just one of those things that guys like to do. But feminism kind of takes that and turn it on its head to make it seem like it's some type of toxic power dynamic. When in some cases it can be, but that's for the woman to use discernment, because women do have the choice to choose the type of mate that they have for the rest of their life. They just choose poorly.
Yeah, but that's a double-edged sword of freedom. People don't understand. Freedom is both the power to succeed, but it's also the freedom to fail as well.
Yep.
But everybody always want to think about the positive. I personally think feminism killed chivalry just because of the nature of it. Feminism is saying that we are equals, but in terms of mating requirements and things, the man has to do 85% of the work in order to be successful in this culture nowadays. And I feel like it's a lot of unaware, not trying to be chauvinist, but it's a lot of unaware women that, although the corporate world makes you think you don't, there is a biological clock. Like the increase in autism is one of the biggest factors is people are having kids later and later. Like, and people don't acknowledge that huge risk factor. You're muted. Go ahead. Oh, my bad, bro. My bad. I
Go
thought you
ahead.
were about to say something.
My bad. Go ahead.
You all good. But people ignore the fact that feminism states that they're equals, but in terms of everything that was predated for feminism, the coordinate process is pretty much still the same, and that would directly contradict what feminism is. And I agree that, like, as a man, I want to take care of my partner,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, in this culture nowadays, it feels like it's a lot of women preying on that nature. And it's like they don't think that we understand or we can see that they're preying on that nature.
Yeah, they are, and they messing it up for women that actually do want to be more traditional, because some women like my wife like to be stay at home and cook and clean and have all their bills paid. Some women like that, and I believe most women will like that. But see, the thing with feminists, they want to have that. They want to have their cake and eat it too. They want to be wined and dined, but still have the authority to tell a man what to do and pretty much run him as well as a household. So they want to play both sides, and you can't do that, because when you paying the bills and you taking care of everybody, you're ultimately responsible. So it's like the captain of the ship. If when the ship goes down, the captain goes down with the ship too. The crew can leave. The crew can hop out, use the boats, but the captain got to go down with the ship, because it's his responsibility. So if they don't follow directions and sabotage the ship, he got to take that anyway, because when shit falls, he going down with it. So it's not wise to work against the one that's being the main provider, to be the head. It's not wise for the body to work against the head. But these women want
It's
to
a
be the
lot,
head and the body.
and it's just a terrible crime that they don't see. That's the injustice. They don't want equality; they want superiority, and that's the problem because think about the WNBA. If there was equality, the WNBA wouldn't exist because there would be a league of lower level men, which would be more qualified technically because they would win against them. And the WNBA technically shouldn't exist if we were all equals because there would be one league, National Basketball Association, with everybody in it.
Yep,
But people want to understand that in order for that to happen, the men's league would have to lower themselves to play with them.
they
And
would.
that's the problem that people don't understand. Like you gotta acknowledge the fact that some people are better equipped to do things. And if you look at a revenue sharing standpoint from the WNBA with their players, they make 200% more than they should really make because they are
They're
working
not,
for a failing company.
and they're not generating any money. They've been at a deficit for what, a decade.
Yes,
They
they're
not.
insulated by the NBA's like huge revenue flow.
Yeah, it's literally biting the hand that feeds you. It's a snake biting its own tail. It's just counterproductive in every measure. Women can't go without men. They act like they don't need men, but everything that you have and everything that you use is made or maintained by a man. If you could build a whole society for women, and men would be like, okay, y'all got it, and it'll still go to crap because they can't maintain. They don't know what it took to build it. So how are they gonna maintain it? How are they gonna keep this lavish
I
lifestyle that
don't
they
know.
love?
I gotta give you pushback on that though because as somebody working for the government, like 85% of the government employees are women, and they run it effectively, and they doing like
I'm
a
not talking
really
about the
good job,
government.
even though it's nah, but that's what it takes. Like, so I'm saying if they like went to break apart, they got a integral part of the government that people don't understand. It's like my office is like 85% women, and it's like they handle all the financials in Cook County, and they do a good job at it, you know. So
You
they'll
think the
take that with
government
them.
do you think the government being 85% women, do you like the fruits of our government right now? Do you think our government is moving in a good direction?
So it's hard to tell with a nation so big, just because there are so many things I'm unaware to that are going well, and I can only focus on the media hysteria that they cause. So that's a hard question to answer just based on that optic alone, you know.
Hmm. Okay.
But like
I
I like where our government's at because we got a lot of holes in it as well.
holes.
Yeah, like saying that it's a lot of parts within our country that could be moving a lot better. Like our prison system needs to be less about punishment and more about restructuring the labor force, like moving away from physical labor and say you get locked up, you get some technical skills and like. But granted, those
So they should
people
be
have to be
rewarded.
willing. They're not going to be rewarded because it's hard work,
It
like
sounds
data
like
entry
being
type shit like
rewarded
that.
because if they go to jail and get technical skills, they commit a crime to go to jail to get skills that people have to pay for. That
But
sounds
you
like
got
a
to keep in mind
reward.
a lot of these laws violate the Constitution, and they do it under the veil of hysteria. You got to keep in mind the
What
Patriot Act is one of the most. It violates your direct rights to legal search just because your
Yeah.
voice is. You feel me? Like
Yeah, I completely
people don't
agree about
understand
the
that,
Patriot Act. I completely agree about that. But
and
that's
that was called by
nobody's.
hysteria, though.
Yeah, it was caused in the wake of 9/11, but that's not really that's a completely different thing from people committing crime
But
and going to jail
but
and
not
getting
no.
skills.
I agree. I agree that you shouldn't be rewarded for doing something bad. But what if you're the part of the population that we need labor wise?
What do you
Because
mean?
we're operating at a deficit. We have actually have a labor shortage. Like we're overproducing with little structure, and we need to stop having, say, those customer service roles that they ship overseas because it's cheaper. That should be illegal. Just because we need those roles actually filled within country. Just because the
Well,
customer service would be better if you have somebody within your region talking to you. Just because the language is different.
yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I somewhat agree, but I have to offer a little pushback of yes, we do need to have more jobs here and more industry here in these companies. These really the what needs to happen is that the businesses need to be able to function within the country where they're not bleeding out the sides and bleeding out the ass of just a bunch of fees and money that they have to dump. So we need to make it more profitable for businesses to be here, therefore they can be here. So Trump is going the way Trump is going about doing it. He's doing the tariffs. You can like him, you can hate him. We're just gonna have to wait and see. But other things that
Because
he could do is lower regulations to make it more profitable and easier for businesses to breathe over here. That's why businesses be a lot of big corporations and these factories, they not in these cities no more, like Chicago, LA, New York, even Houston, because they getting screwed by these high ass taxes and these business fees and all type of stuff that's just making it unrealistic for them to exist in this country. That's why they go
so
overseas, because it is cheaper. So we do need to bring the jobs back, but we just gotta talk about a way that would actually bring them back to where it's not like you can't force them to come back. The best you can do is try to really entice them to come.
I would want to decentralize business in general and move away from the corporation structure and move it more back to the people's hands and like go back to having like places in the country where they specialize in things. Like I think that'll benefit the country a lot more. That way, people have options on what they want to do, and they can go to different places. And we should start young with the education system because our education system hasn't been reworked since the 1920s, and
What's
it's
up,
starting to
Reels?
show. No, it's real.
No, I was
Like,
saying what's up to somebody in the chat. I hear you though.
oh, my bad, Brody.
No, you good, you good. I'm listening.
But like, so since the 1920s, the same school structure has been commonly distributed among us, and it hasn't done us any justice. It's actually done us a lot of harm because it sent a lot of people down the path of crime just because they were labeled as something as a child, and that stuck with their subconscious, and they started acting out that behavior that they were labeled as. Guilt. Some people are guilty, and some people deserve opportunity to come back from childhood mistakes.
Hmm.
Because it's hard to condemn a child. Like it's really hard to condemn a child because I don't think there's such thing as bad kids. I just think it's bad guidance. You know?
Well, so I'm trying to understand. So, are you saying that decentralizing the corporations and giving the power back to the people, do you know where that works? Because that sounds like communism.
No, 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 no. Not saying that because it's still gonna be free trade and people got to run their business as well. And like
Well, is
you
it
have the freedom to fail. Like,
is
but
it
I'm
really
saying like
free trade if you decentralize in their corporation?
you're not decentralizing it by you tampering with it. You decentralizing it by people gaining skills to compete. That's all I'm saying. Like the opportunity to
Yeah,
compete. Like
but we already have that.
no, we don't. We don't. Right now, there is a monopoly on resources, and people don't understand the stranglehold that the big corporations have.
Yeah, that's because the corporations actually had the means to do it. So, like, for example, in our hood in Chicago, we don't have any local, like family run grocery stores like black people in my neighborhood. Well, when I was in Chicago, I'm in Houston now, but when I was in Chicago, we didn't have any local grocery stores like black owned grocery stores. Even, I mean, Hispanics got their own, but let's talk about the blacks. Um, that is one thing you could say, like a lot of these grocery stores like Whole Foods, Walmart, Aldi, Jewel Osco, Randall's, that's down here. A lot of these Kroger's, a lot of these grocery stores, you could say that they also have a monopoly because a lot of these stores be owned by the same people. Like Jewel Osco up north is the same company as Randall's down here. It's the same style, same company. And you could argue that they have a monopoly, but that doesn't mean that you can't also make your own business and thrive on the side. You just won't be
No,
the
but
central focal point, but you have the freedom to make your own company.
that's un-American for them to have a monopoly in itself because we have so many antitrust laws and anti-monopoly laws in itself just to protect people from things happening like this. And although corporations run our government, I'm not saying that the corporations don't have a place in America. What I'm saying is the corporations don't have a place to suck America dry. And that's what people don't understand. Like they turn record profits in one of our most severe economic declines. People don't
Yeah,
understand
but is
with that
that their
happening.
fault?
It's partially their fault because they're allowed to spew propaganda through commercials and things, not
Okay,
knowing
so I
that
think I think I know what
malpractice.
you're saying. I hear what you're saying. So, like for example, the pharmaceutical companies definitely have a monopoly over the pharmaceuticals.
Healthcare.
Yeah, healthcare. So
Yeah.
I understand that, and they are allowed to run propaganda on the TVs and talk about that type of stuff, which they didn't used to do that. They didn't. It was illegal to do that before. I don't remember exactly what law caused them to be able to do it, but they didn't used to be able to do it before. So I understand the monopoly sense on that. That is like a legitimate, like they can make profit when there's a economic crisis. But I think that's like there's not too much of that. Like the example I gave, there's not too much of that I see. I definitely, big pharma is like the main, if not the biggest, and like I couldn't even argue that like tech companies have monopoly. Like Apple has a monopoly, but you don't have to use Apple.
It's
You
a
know,
willing
you
choice. Like
yeah,
people that make that willing choice, and I can't knock that willing choice that people make because I enjoy Apple products myself. Even though I know that Android is a superior phone, if you're looking at just the technology itself.
yeah, it is. It's just more fashionable to have an iPhone. But
Exactly.
Android, yeah, I know Android be coming with that stuff, but I understand what you're saying, but I think but so like how much of that is really affecting our country? Like, well, what is that going to change? Let's say, for example, we
So
do decentralize big pharma. What would that change?
a time drain. So my thing is the American population doesn't understand they are severely underslept, and with them being severely underslept, it's just like the Stanford prison experiment that people don't apply to the whole world. All the Stanford prison experiment was deprivation. So with sleep deprivation, people start they become more aggressive for one. So that would lower the crime in itself if people were allowed like a siesta, like how they do it in Spain. Do you know the workday in Spain doesn't start until 10 a.m. and it ends at 5? Like
I
that's a
I
beautiful
didn't know that.
thing. And then they have like a little stop in the middle of the day where everybody just go home, eat lunch, get refreshed, and come back to work. And the workday still ends at
Yeah,
5.
I don't know if those things are actually attributed to sleep deprivation, which that is true. You know, sleep deprivation does have them symptoms of aggravation and stuff like that,
No,
irritability.
no, but that's
Uh,
that's all it is because people say 8 hours of sleep is what you need, but you actually need more than that. 8 hours of sleep is the minimum. People don't understand that's the minimum. Like
yeah,
they're not hitting that threshold, and the minimum is the threshold for when you're hitting upper threshold as well. People don't
right.
understand the problem is it's rare that most people hit the upper threshold of that sleep number. So when they say 8 hours, it's really 10 to 12 if you think about it because you're not hitting the upper threshold. So if you keep on hitting the bottom of the like average as your peak, your average is way lower than your peak. You know that, right? So
Yeah.
most people don't get 8 hours. They get an average of like 6.2.
But do you
It's
so like I don't know if I agree that well I don't agree that sleep getting more sleep would like solve a lot of these problems because look at Japan. They literally have sleeper offices in Japan because them people are so tired over there. Like there's countless videos and evidence of people falling asleep on train, people falling asleep standing up. Like I said, they even invented some inventions they have over there. It's like places you can go in to literally it's a desk you go in there and just put your head down and just go to sleep for a couple hours. You rent the unit and you just go in there to sleep because you working so much. But somehow their society is still able to function. They have good morality. The families are still together. Very
but
very
you
low
you
crime. You
you just
know,
highlighted the key factor that they have places where they can take a siesta. It's
asleep.
rare, or it's rare that you have that in the country. And they have one of the best like philosophies in their country. It's called like an ikigai. Like, or I might be mispronouncing it, but with the ikigai philosophy, it's the diet that they have as well as the lifestyle that they live. Those are the hugest factors in their livelihood average. And you also keep in mind that Japan, although it has industrial parts, the rural parts are the parts that make up the highest population
Excuse me.
longevity. So you have to keep in mind that whenever you get a Japan average, it's a lot of rural lifestyles where they live to the hundreds. So they bring up that average. If you see within the actual Japan urban lifestyle, you will see that their life expectancies are very similar to American life expectancies because they work the same amount of hours and that stacks up on your body. Like we said with that threshold, when you hit the minimum as your peak, that means that your average is way lower than your minimum sleep number that you need to get. So you always got to keep in mind, like they tell you, if you get 8 hours, you're fine. But that's when you're getting to the upper threshold and you get to that minimum threshold. Eight is the minimum. So that's like the thing with the American culture. Like the work schedule doesn't permit for you to hit those thresholds, or you're gonna be remiss in your life if you start hitting those 10 hour, 11 hour
Mm.
thresholds just because you don't have time to sleep those extra 3 hours because your life is structured in 8 hour blocks.
Okay, I understand. I still don't agree, but I understand what you're saying. I think that yeah, we do have our stuff is structured in 8 hours, like our works. Most people work 9 to 5, 5 days, 8 hours, 40 hours a week. But some people also work 10, 12 hour shifts. Like I work 12 hour shifts, and if I was to work, if you work 12 hour shifts, like I work 4 days, it's really like a 10 and a half, but it definitely feels like 12 because I got to get there before then. I got to start getting ready. So if I was to work 12 hours and then I still get 10 hours of sleep, I would have enough time to get up and go to work, come home and go to sleep, and just go to work until I'm off for the next couple of days. That doesn't sound great to anybody,
Exactly.
but again, I mean, if you wanted to if you wanted to get that much sleep, I think it would be possible. I just think that people kind of take on a lot of responsibility, because the job is just one thing. You really as an adult, your main three things is sleep, work, and eating. You can eat in about 30 minutes or less, 15 minutes really. Get up, take a shower, go to work, come home. If you sleep in the same amount of time that you working, you should be fine, right? But I just don't know about the sleep thing because I can't sleep. I can barely sleep 8 hours. Like, and I
But
wake
but
up fully rested to work 12 hours.
but you gotta keep in mind, if you could barely sleep that long, you gotta understand the problem in itself that you can't sleep to the threshold that your body has slept for, like successfully. That's how your family has evolved through the years, made it through the Stone Age. Is that you guys were the type of people who were able to get sleep and evolve because that's when your brain does the most healing. You would see the most intelligent people, it correlates to their sleep as a young child.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
Yeah. Let's transition to one of the topics. Pick one of the topics on the list, and we can just transition to one of those.
Let's see. Let's see. Weed business.
So I could go first on the weed business. I think the weed business is another one. Like I said, decentralized. I think the weed business needs to be decentralized, and I think Trump is the president to help that happen. Actually, not saying good or bad. I'm just saying that he's for deregulation,
He's
and I
definitely
don't think
more inclined to do that.
and I don't think it's fair that in Illinois the process is hugely slanted towards corporations and not towards the peddlers in the communities that it has damaged. Granted, I would want those people subjected to different testing standards as well, just because they wouldn't necessarily have the purest product sometimes. So you always need them to be vetted. But at the same time, weed is a drug that makes people worse, but it's a conscious evil that those people, not conscious evil, I'm not going to call it evil because it's not evil. It's a conscious decision that those people make. And I think the risk factor should be more highlighted. And I also think the recovery efforts for people who have weed addiction should be more prevalent than to treat it like a joke. That's another thing that I would change about the weed business is they not showing people the effects because I don't think it'll mess with people who are fully developed, but it's a lot of children who are indulging and I don't think they understand the neurological environment that weed creates for them, especially if they're not fully developed.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's definitely interesting to say the least. That in Illinois they have weed dispensaries now. But you still can't buy from your local weed man Kind of seems like they're taking the business away from the weed man. But at the same time, it is illegal to sell drugs. Like unregulated drugs is illegal across the board. So just like you can't buy a Xanax from your local Xan man, but you can get a prescription for it, it's a little different. So I think in that sense, yeah, I understand the regulations. I don't smoke weed anymore. I'm not a fan of it anymore.
I'm not a
Because
fan of it either,
it
bro.
does have a lot of negative effects. We're seeing a lot of these negative effects, and people are saying because it's because the government now they giving us the weed. Now it's all this stuff wrong with the weed. I argue that weed is being promoted more, and a lot more people are smoking it, and we're actually able to study the long term effects of it. Because at first it was just kind of a thing that people was doing, and I'm not even sure if you can really run a test on a drug that's not even legal. Like you can't. They probably have, and I'm sure they did. But it just seems like there's more examples of bad stuff going on now with the weed, and you could even argue that it's because the government is putting stuff in the weed. Could very well be a problem. But I just think it is a decision that people make. You gotta accept the consequence when you make decisions like that because there is a risk, a very high risk. That stuff is altering your brain makeup.
And it's just like alcohol. Like people, if you make the choice to indulge, you gotta be responsible enough for your actions while you indulge and after you indulge. If you know you're not able to indulge and keep a safe environment, you shouldn't be too willing to indulge in something that makes you a risk factor for your freedom and somebody else's safety as well. And I think people underestimate the effect of weed because I understand that weed makes people more aggressive because when you're on weed, people think you're always chill and doing all that, but all it is you're basically moving at a different frequency than everybody else, and then when people disrupt that frequency, you don't know how you're gonna react because you're in an altered mind state, and most people don't understand they're in an altered mind state. That's the problem
Right.
with
That
weed.
that's the thing. You're in an altered state of mind, so you can't tell somebody how you'll react when you're in an altered state of mind. Anything can happen. The weed can hit a little
Yeah,
different. Something like I used to smoke weed. When we was in college, I used to smoke weed, but it stopped making me have a good time and started making me anxious. I'm like,
exactly.
I gotta cut it out. That's when I'm like, this is it's no point, you know. And I was only really a social smoker anyway. When I was by myself, I wouldn't face a whole blunt. I would just like hit a little bowl and just puff it a couple times, get like a real little buzz. But yeah, just got to be careful whatever you do, man.
Yeah, I just wish people would acknowledge the risk factors and the harm that it does before they fully indulge in it. And like that's
Yeah,
the biggest thing I hate with people in culture nowadays. They are too afraid of facts that they don't like,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
I
And
hate
and
that.
that in itself is like that's you taking that responsibility to not educate yourself because if somebody presents this information to you and the information is out there, it's on you to educate yourself. It's not like nobody told you. It's not like the information's not there. It's not like what you did is just completely new under the sun. It's not true. So there's genuinely no excuse on doing this stuff and just expecting some sympathy when stuff doesn't work out for you. Like when people be taking these Xans and these drugs and they end up retarded. It's like, I mean, you kind of ran that risk from taking a Xan from your friend. You don't know where these
Exactly.
people get these drugs from. You don't know how they pressing it. Like it's unregulated. It's
And
literally
like,
unregulated.
why are you putting something that's man made and a God made creation? Like
Yeah, you don't need to do
you don't
that.
want to play like that.
You
Like, and
don't.
it's sad that's what these children are doing. Like these young age new generation, they taking all these party drugs, not knowing the longer this goes on, the less and less authentic things become, and the more copying methods are replicated, and the more harm it does. Like you can even see that like with cocaine, like originally when it came into the country, it was a fun party drug, but the longer it went on, the more people doctored it and added additives to it. And then you're seeing that with the opioid epidemic as well. Like certain pills are like heroin.
Yeah,
Certain painkillers are literally heroin. So like
that
it's just like
lean, that methamphetamine, that's heroin, bro.
exactly. and like
You got to
people be
take that
like
risk.
proud of that shit. Like
Yeah,
they
they
take that
are
risk,
proud of it,
but so
which
many people
that
die
makes
from it.
me. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So many people die from it, and it's just so like sad that it's so glorified and just so welcome, and especially in it's pushed in like our music and the culture and all of that. And I just hate that it's so prevalent, and popular for fiend culture.
Yeah, and that's a good segue into the sports and culture topic, because it is an issue in our culture that these people are just addicted to drugs. It's cool to be addicted to drugs. It's cool to be fighting demons and using drugs to get out your fight with demons. It's it's that is like a major issue in our community, in America really, but it's really bad in our community because we are the only people that really glorify it in every facet of the media, people talking about it. If they don't do any, at the very least, somebody that you talk to that's black probably smoke weed. At the very least, at the very least, um, and I blame that on the culture. Culture glorifies it. From the moment you grow up and you understand what a cigarette and what weed is, you got one of your friends at school trying to introduce you to it.
And you can only be so strong till the peer pressure actually makes you curious enough to actually do it. And
Yeah,
like
at
that's the
that
thing
point.
in culture. There's not enough people saying no. There's
Mm-hmm.
not enough people popular saying like, nah, I'm gonna kick it a different way. Like sports and culture, we could talk about the Sanders family. Like people keep on saying it's racism. No, I think it's more so uh embedded racism maybe, but it's more so classism, like people trying to like flex on each other in like a money race. Like I think it rubbed people the wrong way that somebody came into the league not needing the money, actually making more money the year prior, and they kind of put him in his, like they tried to put him in his place by making his contract a fifth round contract instead of a first round contract. It's like they had collusion because he really was second rated quarterback on the board. His numbers proved it and his play proved it. But the thing about it is, it rubbed the GMs the wrong way that they didn't get enough honor from him that they felt that they deserved. It may be deserved, it may not be deserved. But as a young man, he was supposed to play that corporate game, honestly. But he didn't have to play the corporate game because he actually comes from a family that has FU money, you know?
Right. And I'm not
But
gonna lie, I'm not familiar with nothing you just said.
so let me explain to you. So it's a quarterback from college football. He was a very good quarterback. No doubt he was the top three quarterback. You could rank him one, two, or three. So it was about seven quarterbacks drafted ahead of him that weren't qualified enough to get drafted ahead of him. And they said that he was bad in like pre-draft interviews because they just didn't like him. They thought he was a dick, pretty much. So although he may be a dick, his play warranted him to be drafted higher, but because they viewed it as character issues. He was drafted at a lower stature, even though he probably would be the team's starting quarterback by the starting game. So they got the starting quarterback at a huge premium of a discount. People not looking at the financial of it. People crying racism, even though many black players were drafted and they getting life changing money. People
Right.
ignore that fact, and they sign up for this.
Right.
But basically, it's just about people always labeling certain things racism instead of classism. Is
Yeah,
what I'm
that's
saying.
definitely more likely to happen because you can see classism inside of certain races. Um,
Yeah.
it's really just it's ultimately classism because it, like, even in America, um, when you look at, like, let's just say like courts and stuff, people go to trial and they get off for these crimes. It's really because they had the money to play them games. It's really literally comes down to money. You could pay for one of the best lawyers. You can even, if you really want to, you can even pay the prosecutor. But you really just from the jump, you getting a good lawyer, and then there's like criminal history and stuff. But if you can pay for a really good lawyer, you know, you got a better chance than most people. Definitely a better chance than most people. And a lot
It's
of the discriminations are against poor people. It's just poor people. It's not race.
Yeah, but people are so like it's a doctrine that American aristocrats applied to the country. It's basically the Willie Lynch theory, which is you divide to conquer. And you've seen that like the Native Americans conquered each other for the people who migrated here. Basically, they conquered each other by trading with other nations and getting different firepower to make it an unlevel playing field, basically. And you see
That's
that across everything. You can see that in the black community and like the gang banging culture
yeah,
that was implanted into the culture. And gang banging has killed more people than the KKK has killed, but we don't address it with the same severity, which it is, which is inner genocide. And that's how you get colonialized even faster.
yeah. And I also want to point out as far as like the game violence because you bring up a very good point, which is true that the gang members have killed more people than the KKK. So I want to for anybody that's watching, anybody that's not black specifically, I just want to kind of make the distinction between black people and niggas because black people know what a nigga is. Everybody knows what a nigga is. When we talk about racism, it's not about black people versus white people. It should be everybody against niggas and ignorant people. And anybody can be a nigga. You ain't got to be black to be a nigga, but nigga is the term I use for ignorant. I used the Boondocks definition of nigga. It's an ignorant mf'er. So anybody can be ignorant and just be just low life, right? In the white people when I moved down here, the white folks call them coons. That's basically what they is. That's the white version of a nigga. And in the black community, when a black person called another person a coon, they call him an Uncle Tom or a sellout. But the way the white people use it is completely different. It's just interesting. But yeah, we need to make a distinction between niggas and black people because if you walking down the street and you see a black person sagging his pants with a ski mask on, wearing all black in 90-degree weather, that's a nigga. That's a nigga. Like you
I,
don't
I
want
gotta
that
give
person.
I gotta give
Well,
you pushback though, like because as a black man in America, you gotta keep in mind you as being somebody from the culture within the culture, you're able to make the distinction a lot clearer. But you have to just take a step back and look at people who don't have that same viewpoint, that same lens, and able to make that distinction. So I caution between making the distinction because one of my favorite stories in the Bible is the tax collector and the righteous man. Basically, the tax collector was vilified because he was a tax collector, and they say he was a bad man in nature. But the difference between the tax collector and the righteous man is that the tax collector repented for his sins and like was aware of the wrongdoing that he does, but he's asking for God to give the strength to stop, and God gave him the strength to be better because he puts an obstacle in front of him. But then you have the righteous man who's unaware to the harm that they do with being righteous, and like basically it's like the righteous man is condemning the person who really needs them, because you always gotta keep in mind Jesus wasn't in the church. They found Jesus in the whorehouse because that's where he was needed the most.
mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
you gotta keep in mind, like I try and not make a distinction. Like the term nigga is very subjective on how people use it. Although certain people understand the harm behind the word and use it sparingly. It's some people who are ignorant to the harm behind the word and use it in an endearing way as a pronoun or as a way of speaking. Not saying that it's right, but you have to be understanding towards those people. You have to be more cautious of the people who only use the N word in a derogatory way. I feel like it's more so the use of the word. Because if somebody only say the N word in a derogatory way and then they condone people saying it around them, they think that basically they allow people around them to denigrate themselves, and that's not an environment you would want to be in if you trying to live a substantially positive life.
yeah, I hear you. But with the thing with like other with other races and they them not being able to tell the difference from a nigga and a black person, or let's just say ignorant person, or let's just say a YN, or I don't know what this. I'm gonna just say nigga. With other races not being able to discern the difference between a well-to-do black and a good-for-nothing black, is that the fault of the other races not knowing the difference?
So I'm not saying it's the fault, but you gotta keep in mind only God can judge us. So it's not their place to be able to have that level of scrutiny and lens on them. You
Oh
gotta
no, it's
keep in
not. It's
mind.
not judging them. It's just. I mean, it's not judging their character. It's just looking at their appearance and making a judgment based on that. It's not judgment as in you are a bad person.
But
It's more like judging a ball coming down and where it's gonna land.
it's definitely a safety response. You definitely get pensive around things that like will put your antennas up. I agree that certain presentations need to be assimilated, but you also got to keep in mind the people who have been in the country the longest are getting treated like they're a second class citizen in their own place that they have grown and flourished in.
Who are you
That's the
talking about?
thing. So we as the melanated people of this nation, we have been here near the longest since the first settlers. Because most people don't understand the American slavery. Most of those births, 85% of the slaves in America were born in America. So people got to keep that in mind. Only 15% were imported.
Right.
So people got to keep that in mind. So you've been here the longest because of how our population has grown and spread out. You and the settlers, however you want to phrase it, but like they enslaved the native people because they basically went to war with each other and they
Right.
sold their counterparts.
Yeah. Okay. So I understand what you're saying. So, but like, how, how do we go about fixing that? So, like, what are you proposing with that claim that the people that's been here the longest are being treated like second class citizens? And what do you mean treated like second class citizens?
Just just like the integration of school system, like the integration of our school system was detrimental to those communities that were going from having an environment of teachers all around them to an environment with teachers from external communities.
Yeah, but
Like
that's what they protested for. Is that not what they marched for?
I think that the march was misguided. You gotta keep in mind everything that happens in history isn't great. So you
I
gotta think
completely
that
agree. I
the
completely
foresight
agree.
wasn't there to maintain their facilities independently and not understand that you have a foreign entity coming in. They don't necessarily have the same level of compassion that you would for your environment. Because they're an external implant that's coming in and leaving. So they're not really pouring back into the community. They're just taking because they're getting funded from whatever public entity or public fund that school system works on.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's one of
Yeah.
the biggest fixes we could do.
So do you think we should uh for a lack of better words, do you think we should segregate?
Not segregate. That wouldn't be wise. We need
Well,
to.
not
It's
government mandated segregation, but do you think
not
we should move ourselves back and build our own community
not
separate from the rest of the population?
that wouldn't be wise. We need to work with whoever's around you in your geographical area. I don't think people need to get focused on race. I think it's more so geography. You need to work with the people around you to make your community better and make your community more cohesive. That's the problem in America. We don't have cohesive communities. We need to bring that back and have a cohesive community. Like it doesn't have to be every day, but there should be a day of the week where everybody in a certain community they have mandated by the government off, and that would just be a community improvement day where y'all work together, have barbecues and stuff, just build bonding, things of that nature, where y'all take a day off of the flux of work and y'all just take a day where y'all bond with your community, and that will prevent a lot of crime, a lot of animosity. It will lower the workload on people, and it will stop the bleeding that we have economically in our country due to overproduction and underconsumption. So that's all I'm saying.
Okay, yeah, I hear you. Only thing I disagree with is I don't think the government should do it. I think we already have block parties. That's kind of. It sounds like what you're describing is a
No,
block party.
no, but I'm not saying like a block party. I'm just saying it's like a siesta day where everybody in your community do something to improve the community and then make it mandated. Like it's still like you working or something. Say like you a stonemason or something, repair something a stone in your community. Do something that's like to improve your community,
Okay, I just
and
I
they
think
could get a
my
paid a wage for it, or
okay, I hear you, but I
because
just think that
you have
my
a public works fund regardless.
right, I just think that my thought of how a community should work is not that we're doing stuff for the community. I think it's more so you're doing stuff for yourself and the family, and that in turn helps the community because everybody's taking care of their own share. Like if we all do our part, it's like a football team. When you play football, everybody has their job, and in whole, that makes the football team look good because everybody's doing their job, and that makes the team look good. That's how I think about a community, because if we just, that's like me being a O lineman. I'm playing deep. I'm playing offensive line. I'm playing guard, and I'm trying to do the job of my job, the guard and the tackle. It's a tackle, right? Yeah, the guard and is it a tackle? I forget the positions, but
Yeah,
the
yeah,
guard is
yeah.
right.
A
Yeah,
tackle right
or
into guard.
nose. Yeah, you feel me? So if everybody focused on their job, you could be able to see the weakest link, and then that's when y'all could probably come together and be like, okay, we need to help pull this person up. I see you struggling. Let me help you, but we have to start by doing our jobs first. I don't think that coming
But
into a
I
community and saying we need to fix the community. I don't think that's the way to do it.
no, but what I'm saying is like in order to keep the talent from your hometown within that community and or in order to keep it flourishing, you need bright people. And I think the problem is there's a lot of bright people in bad environments, but they have the talent to get out of that environment and they do at the first opportunity. And the problem is when all your talented birds fly the nest and start different coops in different places, they leave the other nest barren. So my thing is, in these communities, a lot of flight of talent. So they need to figure out a way in order to maintain that talent within the community. I'm not saying that
I know
everybody got
how.
to stay home, but you got to
Yeah,
make it equitable. You feel me?
yeah, yeah. I hear you. So I think what you're saying is true. It would be nice to still have those people in the community because they could definitely be resources for the community and pillars of inspiration for the people in the community as well.
Exactly.
Like imagine if Lamar Jackson still stayed in his hometown or something like that. That would be great. But the issue is it's deeper than just we need to fix our community. It's more so the community is imploding on itself. That's why they leave because everybody knows when you in a black community, when you get your money, the first thing you do is leave because why? It's like a bucket of crabs. Once they see you crawling your way out, somebody's gonna come pull you down. They don't look at you as a friend no more. They look at you as a lick, and now you're at risk of being robbed or even killed because you have something that somebody else wants. And that's like the issue of the culture because it's the same thing with businesses. The businesses don't want to be in the hood because who wants to operate in the community where I'm steady getting looted and robbed and my business getting destroyed, and I'm paying these super high premiums in insurance to get my stuff recouped. And some of the stuff you can't recoup with insurance. Some of these small businesses or these small local businesses, they don't have the insurance money or they don't have the money saved up to revamp their whole store because somebody decided to come and rob their store. So it's the same thing if you got money. Let's say like D Rose. D Rose grew up down the street from where my mom lived. Like we live around the corner from Simeon. It's there's a reason why he left. The area Simeon is a nice school, but the area around it is horrible. So I just think that the people we need to first off we need to get the crime under control because once you get the crime under control, people will want to operate in that area because why wouldn't I want to stay in the area? It's my hometown. I can beef up my house and the property value is still cheap because it's an up and coming neighborhood. So I don't have to break an arm and a leg and paying any taxes because it's in an underdeveloped community. And when it starts developing, then the overall community builds up. It builds itself. The money will start coming in, businesses start coming in, all type of stuff like that. But you got to get rid of the crime.
I think the solution to get rid of the crime is to occupy the children's time because they do the most heinous crimes because they're unaware of the consequences of their actions. So we start occupying the youth time with underserved areas in our society.
Occupying
That
them with
would
what?
really amplify like I would say, occupy them with work or occupy them with opportunity to do something, to be productive, to produce something or anything, you know? Because there's a lot of kids sitting idle, and you got to keep in mind an idle mind is a devil's playground. So you got to just get them engaged in something because there's a lot of people stuck just staring at a screen and and wonder why they don't have any other skills when they just watch people do things, you know?
I disagree.
And
That's
you can
that's what
actually
the
harness that. These kids love staring at train to train them.
I disagree. That's exactly what Mayor Brandon Johnson and Sam is saying, that we need more programs. We need to occupy these kids and stuff. We have a lot of programs in Chicago. We have a lot of programs which pay you. A lot of people know about After School Matters. I used to tell people about After School Matters in my school all the time. Guess how many people actually joined? Nobody joined After School Matters. Nobody joined. I was in Upward Bound my whole high school career, and they was paying us and taking us on trips around the country, like, and we got to stay on college campus. There's programs for people, for these kids. There's a lot of programs. Even if you just want to do basketball or just do sports, there is a lot of programs. These parents are not putting their kids in these programs. These parents don't care for the kids, and
But my thing is, those people got to suffer the consequence. But I think the knowledge
but
should
they're
be
not.
more widespread. But I think the knowledge should be also spread to the middle class black children, not just the lower class black children. The middle class
But
black
them the
children
ones
should
that's
be exposed to those
destroying the
resources as
communities.
well.
Them the ones that's doing the killings is the lower class.
Because I would agree because I grew up in a area where like some people were well off and the other people weren't so well off. Like, and I will always see the person who had it all will be the person doing the most harm and destruction, just because
Really,
they want a facade and image or they
a,
had a
a,
standard to
they
maintain.
want a
Yeah,
facade
and
or
then
an
the people
image
who
of the
had to
low
live that
class
life,
people. That's amazing.
yeah, and the people who had to actually maintain the image for survival, they hated that mentality. They escaped the first opportunity they got, you know.
Yeah,
And but you gotta keep in mind, you gotta leave people the freedom to make bad choices because that's a part of the American freedom. Like people don't understand, like you don't always make the right choice, and you living in America gives you the opportunity to make good and bad choices, and don't underestimate the impact of either. Like I got a saying, you gotta treat the misses like makes and the makes like misses, just
yep,
because it keeps you level, and you gotta just keep on moving because it's all a journey for real.
yeah. It's it's definitely gonna take a slow process. How do you feel about like crime and policing and stuff?
I think crime needs to be stopped for one, but also crime, you have to keep in mind, crime is only things that are investigated. So I think it's an over persecuted area, not just black, not just white. It's just poor people are being preyed upon by the corporate system. And right now you see with the legislation and all that, with all these tickets and parking tickets, it got to get to a point where people have equity in the land that they live in. And the problem is people don't understand. We signed bad deals with the highway and the tolls people. The original agreement that the people had was the tolls will only be until the road was paid for, and the road has been paid for 1,000 times. So the problem is people don't understand that the little revenues that they constantly take from us are the problem. That's what's making us feel like you're going poor because you don't feel that knick-knack payment from every toll you make, but that knick-knack payment that you have to make that journey so frequently to get to work, to get to where you're going, that that inflicts an impact that people underestimate. And that
Right.
can be prevented. That can be removed or that can be restructured. That's the biggest thing because if people are eating off it, you don't necessarily need to remove it, but you definitely need to restructure it to give the people more equity.
Well, yeah, we definitely be getting screwed on stuff like tolls. But that's just the same play that they've been running on us since day one. Yeah, we're just gonna run this policy until X, Y, and Z happens, and then X, Y, Z happens, and they never go back to what they were doing before they enacted the policy. We got to stop falling for that for sure. But I think that the thing with crime, it's I think it's just how do I put this? I don't think that there's an over persecuted area. I think I think that I think that the police are we're actually having a lack of police. I can't even say with Chicago there's a lack of police. We lost 2,000 police in the last couple of years in Chicago alone, and you see that the crime is once again going out of control. Chicago has never been better. It's never been good. It was bad when I was growing up. It wasn't horrible, but it seemed like it was getting better, or it seemed like it was good at first. But that's also because I wasn't going outside. Like we used to stay around the community. But when we started moving around, it got worse and worse and worse. And it's in turn due to the being soft on crime. These police not being incentivized to do their job effectively, because if they arrest somebody or if they in a community too much, then they want to cry racism. Then when the police go, they killing each other. So it's like you gotta pick something. It's like either you don't have the police over here to stop the crime before it happened, or you take the police out and the crime goes out of control, and then they're sitting there crying to say, "Oh, the police never come in my neighborhood." It's because when the police were there, y'all said they was racist. So you
Yeah,
can't have your cake and eat it too. Like I remember growing up thinking, "Wow, the police never come." We had somebody break in our house, and it took the police 4 hours to get to our house. Now
yeah,
that I'm older,
understaffed.
now that yeah, but not even then I understand, like, it's a break in. It already happened. There's no urgency because there's nothing actually happening. But like for yeah, my wife just said when her dad died, they were waiting for the police to come get his body for hours because they
But
were backed
they
up.
don't be moving properly.
Yeah,
So
so they're not
my thing with
being
that though,
valued.
so that should be a community service that you guys should have, like your community, just like a dog pound. Every community needs that, but you could see the communities without that, they suffer from, like, I know Harvey. Right now, they're currently missing a contract with a pound or veterinarian or people who have expertise at capturing the animals. And now they have like an epidemic of like loose dogs biting people.
Yeah, yeah, it's that. There you go. There you go. Right there. There you go. Right there. I mean, it's not like this. The dog. It's not like the town people was there for no reason. They were there for a reason. You don't realize how much you need them until they gone. So, but the issue with this policing stuff is that it has way greater consequences than dogs running around biting people. The consequences of the police not being there is the crime going out of control and the community suffering on every measurable level. Like every by every measure, you can see that they're not getting enough money in their community because nobody wants to build businesses in that community. Therefore, they have to outsource and travel outside their community to get basic needs. All the stores are shutting down because the stores they had, like Walmart, there's no Walmart in Chicago anymore. That is insane. Chicago is a top five U.S. city, and they don't have a Walmart. That's crazy. The
Is
people, what?
go ahead.
No, yeah, the people are demoralized because the police aren't going to get there in enough time to protect them from the people that's killing everybody. And then when the police do catch them and take them to court, they get released on bail because, oh, the courts are overfilled, or this is, or for whatever reason, now all of a sudden, oh, there's no cash bond, so you could just get out. And then the person that you just snitched on for killing your cousin is now he gonna kill you because you're a witness. So once he kills you, he doesn't go to jail because there's no witness to testify against him committing this murder. So he's back on the streets. You and your cousin smoked, and it's just gonna keep on going. Like it's just so much BS that happens just simply from removing the police. When the police is there,
So
you don't have them teen takeovers. When the police are
so
told to shut that shit down, you don't have those teen takeovers.
so my thing with the policing and all that is, although you do need policing, you need policing of your community. That way they'll be able to communicate better. I think policing isn't a problem in terms of what the purpose they're meant to serve. But I think the policing, people got to examine the policies that were implemented for the police to enforce. The problem is people don't examine that fact. Like, the problem with defund the police is the police are needed in certain areas because they provide balance. That's the biggest thing. Like it's a whole lot of areas where the police don't have a presence, and it's just a bad mix of crime and a bad mix of people running the neighborhood who don't necessarily have the foresight or even the compassion for the people in the neighborhood. I agree, but like the thing with that is, I don't think the police structure that we have and the laws that we have, people understand a lot of those laws came to stifle a population. A lot of those laws weren't meant to be applied to everybody. It's policies where people are being taxed, but they're not necessarily being represented in a fiduciary nature, meaning that the people operating who are supposed to take care of them aren't operating with their best interests in mind. They're operating with more so donor interest, which would be classic just because your donors mostly are people who have the means to make an impact in what you do politically. So I got a caution against that because everything boils down to rich and poor, like you said with the cash bonds. I think getting rid of
Yeah.
that is a good thing in terms of certain people don't have the means to pay those fees, and that doesn't mean that they should stay in jail because you have a higher success rate of fighting your legal battle, which is an American right, when you are a free man because you could pursue different resources and you can have different means of communication with those resources as opposed to if you're behind a wall. So I got to think about that vantage point.
Right. I understand. And it is like it is a class thing. I just think that with certain like crimes, like if you get booked up for murder, there's no reason for you to be walking around with an ankle monitor waiting your trial. Like that's just ridiculous. Um,
But
and
you got to admit they get their due process as well.
yeah, your due processing is you going to trial and you have your fair and right to a speedy trial. That's your due processing. But one, you're not getting a speedy trial because you're awaiting your trial for months and months and months. That's the issue. You need to be getting in and getting out so you can have your trial and either you in or you out. Also, with the people that do commit the crimes, they and the people like let's say like Vaughn for example, or Vaughn or Dirk and people like that. These people have money, so they get booked up and they get a bail. You know they getting a bail. You know that they
But
getting a
my counter
bail.
to that is I think you're looking at the extreme in which I feel like the extreme is pretty much a slam dunk on. You gotta not allow the extreme end to be the most reoccurring occurrence. I agree that certain things shouldn't be happening, but I also gotta push back and say it's an American right to be presumed innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah.
So I don't think that you should be sitting in a cell because that that that's not being seen as innocent until proven guilty. You should have your day in court. I believe the ankle monitoring it's a good system to be able to track people to make them honor their commitment and honor their wrongdoing. But I also think there should be more conversation and banishment. People should be banished from certain countries, certain not countries, certain states and certain counties rather. People should be banished from certain counties instead of having to be held there and draining the community of resources to supply that person in that jail cell. They're banned from that county and they will also carry that record of being banned from a county, and other counties have to evaluate that fact and see if they accept that person. And I
Okay.
think that people need to stop getting labeled as felons and certain things like that if their crimes aren't like detrimental to somebody else or sexual in nature. Like if they have like a history of DUIs, that might need to carry with them. But if they violated a tax law and they spent 5 years in jail, I believe that person should be labeled for like certain fraud elements, yes, but they shouldn't be barred from employment from other places unrelated to their crime.
Okay, I understand. I understand that. I don't know if I agree with that though. Being labeled a felon, I mean, it is an umbrella term, but it's just
It's
like certain things are like felonies just because it's not like a severe enough felony for you to think that, oh, they shouldn't be labeled a felon. Well, because they only stole $1 million, they can get that money back. I mean, it's like there's
no,
there's that's
but
the reason why they have different types of felonies. A felony is still a felony. Now, if it's a misdemeanor, that's a little different. But I think with felonies, there's a reason why it has the label of felony and why it's so severe because there is like severe consequences of the crime that you committed.
But we like we said earlier, we gotta get back to the point of it's not about how you can defend yourself. It's not about the truth. It's about the justice that you can afford to buy, because that's all the justice system is. And we got to go back to the classism that operates within the system that needs to be addressed. Like you not, it's not a true justice system because the poor man can't get justice because justice costs money. And so that tips the scale towards a real demanding system on his people that is detrimental to his people and not beneficial at all. And one thing that I like about that Trump has been doing is he's been actually the check and balance to the judicial branch that hasn't been present in however long. If you think about it,
Yeah,
he, like I'm all for freedom. I'm all for having my rights and not giving rights back. And like one of the biggest things is people don't understand that we're overregulated. We're getting away from the land of the free, and we're becoming the land of the regulated,
yeah.
overregulated.
I like Texas because Texas has a culture that's like very low regulation. You could see it every day. Like it looks like if you're not used to it, it looks like chaotic. But since I've been down here, I just see that it's just like low regulations. Like for example, like attaching stuff to your vehicles and riding around with a whole bunch of stuff in the back of your trunk. Like people be driving and they be having shit falling out the back of their truck. But it's like I know that's not right, but it just goes to show how like the not saying it's carefree, but it's like the low regulation. It's kind of like the feel of like you can make it from point A to point B without getting pulled over and the police saying, "Hey, you can't have this stuff on your car," versus you have it on your car and if you make it to your location without causing a traffic jam with shit falling off your truck, it's a little different. And that's just because a lot of these people be having this stuff. Everybody's entrepreneurial down here. So the lower regulations is why people are entrepreneurial. And that's why people move to Texas, start businesses, especially like in the personal service fields like handyman and maintenance and stuff like that. Because of the lower regulations. And I think, Texas definitely has its flaws as well. But the word of the day is lower regulations. We are too regulated. That is a fact, and we can't even name what these regulations actually do. Like Texas has really strict health code regulations. And whenever you walk into a Benz, they have to have their health rating, like a little rating, get like an A, B, C, or D or whatever. And if you get like a C or a D, you damn near can't even be open. Like they'll come through and shut you down, and that's like a main thing in
That's quality
Texas.
control for real.
Yeah, quality control.
That's
So
real.
like some regulation is good. We just have to go through and be very precise, like with a precision knife, and really cut the cancer out of stuff that's just
Political.
harming businesses. Yeah, and political BS. For
Yeah.
sure.
Like, because a lot of people not noticing that the Democrats and Republicans fighting isn't hurting the aristocratic class. It's really hurting the poor man. Granted,
Yeah.
these tariffs actually level the playing field for the poor man, not understanding that people who had a lot of money in their portfolio, they took a major hit through these tariffs, and they don't understand that hit that they took really leveled the playing field for the poor man. Like, that you don't understand the overhead of those people, those high income people. They really felt those stock dips and the lowest month the market's been having since the Great Depression. So like people gotta understand you have to capitalize off of the facts that are happening. Corporate stocks are gonna be at an all time low at this time. And you need to buy into what you need to buy into. I can't advise people on investing, but I'm telling people like you have an opportunity to get a good stock in companies that you otherwise wouldn't be able to afford to get into. But a lot of people have to take initiative, and that's the problem nowadays. People want things handed to them, and they don't necessarily want to work towards your
Yeah.
fruitful outcome.
Yeah.
Your
That's true.
independence.
That is true. That is definitely true. I wish you could see my comments right now. This guy in my comments is going crazy.
What are you saying?
He talking about they blaming trans people, immigrants. for what's happening, what the billionaires are causing right now. Are you kidding
I
me?
can't
They
even say
cutting
the
every
billionaire. I would say everybody had a hand in it. Like even the trans people. So to
yeah
remove your accountability in America is just crazy. Everybody has a part in this downfall,
yeah.
and we all have to acknowledge that.
And what you said was very true. You know, the Democrats and the Republicans going back and forth about this stuff is not it's not damaging the aristocrats and the people that's lobbying these politicians. And that's why as a conservative, I've pretty much been able to identify the rhinos, you know, the people that's like only Republican in name and not in values. Um, a lot of Republicans are rhinos. A lot of people are globalists. A lot of people are for this propaganda being pushed. You know, sitting there arguing about should trans people be in sports is like it's not a debatable matter. There's nothing to talk about. We should not be wasting our time with this debate. But the fact that we even engaging in this debate just shows you the erosion in our culture and in our society. Because what the hell are we even talking about? What the hell is a trans person? Like what are we even talking about? We sitting there talking about all this stuff. Meanwhile, these people are taxing us out the ass, and we losing more and more money out of our pockets every day.
So I think with the trans people, I think they should have the option to do what they want to do, and it shouldn't be a big topic. I don't care what you do with your like. If you want to cut them off, cut them off. But my thing is, you shouldn't make that my problem, or any in my tax dollars shouldn't go towards you pursuing your higher purpose and doing what you want to do. You can be identified as what you want to be identified as, but I think you need to disclose that to your partners as well, because some people may not be comfortable with that. And so like that'd be my biggest thing. And since we are all equals, it should be fair game because freedom is a double-edged sword. And since they say we are all equals, if they say we're equals, you should allow trans athletes to compete. You should allow to do all these things since we are equals. Like I feel like the trans people can be used as groundbreaking people to like not necessarily prove a point, but just to have factual experiments to back things that had just been hearsay. Like I feel like having the trans experiment would document certain physical things that can't be overcome by decades of a culture because it's 10,000 years of evolution that fights against everything that a movement really promotes. But at the same time, it's all theory because nothing is really concrete facts when you talk about biology. And I don't think people like understand that fluoride causes people to have that hormonal imbalance to the other sex. Like it was a experiment. Like, and fluoride is one of the biggest elements that they put inside most water sources to purify it and clean the water to make it digestible and makes your teeth so they don't rot, basically. So, but with that fluoride, they also did an experiment with these frogs and seeing that the frog's gender actually flipped. So we have to look at trans people as people who had exposure to water that was basically polluted, and it has a huge effect on the outcome. And like those people saying that they feel like another gender, we actually have to listen with a compassionate ear because that may be a authentic feeling and an authentic sensation that they're going through. But I don't think the surgeries and the mechanisms that we have currently can accommodate that need in a beneficial way. I think it's harmful to the body, but I think it's their choice to make that choice and have those surgeries. But my big thing is it shouldn't be a promoted thing or a thing that's fought against because it shouldn't be a issue, but
It
it should
shouldn't
just
be
be
a thing. It should just be something that they do, and that's what they do in their life. And I believe that most people actually don't care what if you're trans or not. I personally don't care. Um,
exactly.
you know, and the stuff that they put in the water, it does have an effect. Um, and it can change people's like chemical. It can cause a chemical imbalance in people's brains, and they can actually be attracted to the opposite gender, and they can't actually believe that they are the opposite gender. And that's a very real thing. But my issue is the political movement. They are being used for political purposes, and that's my issue.
But but you gotta keep in mind that's been a political strategy that has been utilized by the Democratic Party and the Republican Party as well before the
Yeah,
political
they've
realignment.
been doing that since the civil rights movement.
And like you got to understand, a political movement is only nominal unless it's actually sought after and actually pursued by the people. It's just a nominal political gambit. We all understand that it's just to get votes. But my problem is for people to be voting with that motive, it does our country a disservice because that's such a small facet of things that go on. You shouldn't want somebody to pander towards you. You should want somebody to benefit you. And I feel like that's all politics is nowadays. It's just false pandering, false promises are given out. One thing you can say about our current president is he's delivering on everything but the wall isn't even on him. He's getting held up by the other side of the border. So I don't know, like people who really want change, I don't think they want change. They just want change for the aesthetic more so than the actual thing because whether you like it or not, the current president that we have is actually changing things, and it's to be foreseen if it's for the better or the worse. But one thing you gotta acknowledge is it's just change, and it makes you question our past presidents and seeing what he's doing now and what they could have done if they were operating in full capacity or at a different capacity. And it shows that they lied about not being able to do a lot, and they just didn't do a lot for you just because it was against the interests of whoever was backing them. And that raises the question: of who do they serve? You know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, let me see. You got one of these topics of the victim mentality. I wanted to touch on that. I think victim mentality is definitely very real. It's a tool used by Satan to basically get people to throw their hands up and do like this. Whatever happens, happens because I'm a victim and I'm just a person that things happen to. I don't make things happen. Um, and I think it's just a reason for people to choose enemies, and it's just seeming like everybody is identifying as a victim. So what I've noticed is that black people have cried historically cried victim, gay people have cried victim, women have cried victim, trans people are now crying victim, and now even white people are crying victim because laws aren't going their ways and people are just attacking white people and everything's just race politics and
So
stuff, and it's just everybody's crying victim in some way, shape, form, or fashion.
I would say to that, I would say I can't categorize everybody as that. I would say weak people are going to do weak things, and every culture and every race have weak people, and they come out crying wolf, and they make it so when the wolf is actually there, you can't be heard. So you got to keep in mind the thing about that is you have to hold your media accountable and your social media algorithm accountable for bringing those people to the forefront when in reality they're a small minority.
Yeah, but that's kind of the thing. The minority always gets the loudest voices. So like specifically with the civil rights movement, most of the black people were not for the civil rights movement. They were not in support of Martin Luther King. Even the older people that was older than Martin Luther King, they knew that he was a communist. They didn't like the message he was pushing. They didn't like him forcing, he didn't like that he was imposing on America on behalf of black people. They didn't like that. Um, so it's always a small minority. Like a lot of gay and trans people actually just want to be left alone. They just want to be able to exist, and rightfully so. But the issue is that there's a subset of people that want to indoctrinate kids, want to go to schools and drag and read to kids and do stripper shows in front of kids and stuff like that. Like there's always the radicals inside of a subset, but unfortunately the media exacerbates the issue of this very small minority with these very radical views speaking for the whole group of people.
But I think the media has already suffered their blow because you see the big conglomerate companies, they're losing at an epic rate because they lost viewership because they lost the trust of
Yeah,
the
they
people.
paying for it because
Exactly.
a lot of people got to see just how phony the media was when Trump was running and when he was in office. They got to see that the media was lying at literally just full fledged lying. Like everybody could see it. Some people still believe the media. I know a lot of people in my family still believe the media and watch the news, but the media lies. The media lies. But that's the great thing about the free market of ideas is that you could just find you an independent journalist, and you can find somebody that can get the facts, that can get the information out to you, and be as unbiased as they need to be.
Exactly, but a lot of people can't hold themselves accountable to things.
What's going on, MJ? Somebody asked, "What are the lies of what are the lies of the media talking about Trump?" Well, for starters, this is old news. I'm sorry, I'm reading a comment. This person been in my comments for a while. The old news that we already knew was that Trump mocked a disabled reporter. That was a lie. Trump does this thing when he catches somebody in a lie. He does, oh, I don't know what I said. He does this weird animation where he catches somebody in a lie. And he did that same animation for a reporter that he caught in a lie who just so happened to be disabled and have a little arm like this. And the media said that he was attacking that person because he was disabled, when in reality, that's just what Trump does all the time. That was a lie. That's an example of them blatantly lying.
Yeah,
So yeah, a lot of people did lose trust in the media after stuff like that, and it's I thank God that we have internet and we're in the information age, and we can just get this information and look at stuff and be as objective as possible once we get all the information.
but you
Because
gotta keep in mind, people are at all time lazy, and like it's not a lot of critical thinkers in the world anymore. It's more so people thinking with group think, and that's the
yeah,
scariest thing.
yeah, we're at the same time we're in the age of information. We're also in the age of conveniency because everything's convenient. So if you have to do even a little bit of work, it might as well not exist. So that's where it's interesting because, like, are you a truth seeker or are you just sheep? Are you just gonna follow what the media says, what everybody around you says, or are you gonna actually look at what the facts are?
Actually, evaluate how you feeling about the facts. But a lot of people can't do that.
You can't.
Uh,
You
well,
cannot.
it's about my bedtime, man. Great episode, great podcasting with you, bro. Great conversation. I appreciate your vantage point, and I appreciate the knowledge that you dropped on me, and I received it, and I will pass it on to somebody else. If
For sure.
if you had a question for the next guest, because I like one of my favorite podcasts, they do this as well. I want you to leave a question for the next guest, and I also want you to give a statement to them as well. Like tell them something strongly that you feel that is being overlooked in life nowadays.
Okay. Um, a question that I have for the next guest: if if Christianity was true, if somebody could prove that Christianity was true, would you start believing in it? And what was the next question you had? What was the next
Now,
thing you wanted me to
now
do?
leave them with a statement. Now, like tell them something that's been strongly on your heart, and leave them with something to think about. It's basically like your closing statement to the podcast. Sum it
Be
up for them.
Romans 12:2. Be not conformed to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Meaning, don't follow what everybody's doing. Be a free thinker, be critical, observe all things, and just make your own judgment on what's going on. Don't listen to what somebody tell you. Do your own research. If you are going to listen to what somebody tell you, get you a trusted source, somebody that you can verify and make sure that they're not lying and they actually give you the facts. But don't be a sheep, because broad is the road to destruction. Broadway is the road to destruction. So that's all I got.
And that's our show. And our wonderful guest, Choo Choo. And I just want to say, AT, hope you enjoy Andrew Terrell. Have a great